Trump administration says it has reached agreements with Ukraine and with Russia to pause attacks and ensure safe navigation in the Black Sea. This follows 3 days of negotiations in Saudi Arabia. Now, in separate statements released yesterday, the White House also said both sides agreed to develop measures to implement a previously agreed to ban on attacks targeting energy infrastructure. But get this, shortly after the announcement from Washington, the Kremlin said the naval ceasefire would not come into effect until certain sanctions on Russia were lifted. For more on all of this, let's bring in Ambassador John Herbst now. He's the Senior Director of the Atlantic Council's Eurasia Center. He also served as the U.S. Ambassador to Ukraine during the George W. Bush administration. Good morning, Mr. Ambassador. Thanks for joining us. I just want to first set up how crucial the Black Sea is for Ukrainian trade, but also Russian interests as well. Help us understand that.
Ukraine exports most of its products and receives most of its imports via its Black Sea ports. It also used to receive a significant number of imports and send exports from its ports on the Sea of Azov, but the Russian big invasion cut that off from Ukraine, took that from Ukraine. Russia also uses the Black Sea for significant oil exports. But the Black Sea has largely been quiet militarily for the last year and a half, because the Ukrainians drove the Russian Black Sea fleet out of Crimea, and they are cowering in the eastern Black Sea, not threatening Ukrainian shipping recently.
Now, if we look back at how this current agreement, if you can call it that, was reached, we were expecting an announcement more than 24 hours ago that never came. And what came in the end was almost contradicted by what came out of Moscow. Moscow now requesting sanctions placed on Russia be lifted before it abides by this Black Sea ceasefire deal. So how does that help? How does that inform our understanding of the Kremlin's strategy? Because you and I have spoken previously that it seems that the Kremlin isn't really giving anything up.
It's very simple. Putin wants to continue the war. He doesn't want to annoy Trump. So Trump has been asking for a ceasefire, a general ceasefire, since he came into office. The Ukrainians said yes 2 weeks ago at the meeting in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. When Witkoff went to Moscow, the Russians said no. But they polished that up by saying, Putin loves Trump. The initiative is a great one. He agrees in principle. It's just these nuances. But the nuances are meant to make sure that nothing can happen. So there was an agreement on a ceasefire on shooting against energy installations, which the Russians broke immediately, although it seems to now be holding, kind of. The Russians have no problem with a ceasefire in the Black Sea because the only real war that matters for them is on land. The Trump administration seems to be offering some concessions to get the Russians to agree to a ceasefire, which is not very important, the ceasefire at sea. And those concessions, if they were actually implemented, as Russia demands, the Russian statement makes clear it demands those concessions need to be implemented, it would actually strengthen the Russian economy and give Russia better means to continue its war on land. So this actually cuts against the stated Trump goal of achieving a general ceasefire and ending to the killing. This would enable the killing to go on if this naval ceasefire was actually put in place.
So then are we seeing the limitations in the U.S. government to get Russia to abide by what the U.S. wants? Because despite this announcement yesterday, Ukraine now accusing Russia of launching more drone attacks near the Black Sea overnight.
Look, Ukrainian civilians continue to die every single day, despite, for example, the ceasefire on energy installations and now the efforts to get a ceasefire at sea, because Putin wants to continue the war. I have no doubt that if President Trump did what he said he would do, he could make it very hard for Putin to continue the war. Trump said, if either party is an obstacle to achieving this peace, Trump, would put serious pressure on them. He put some pressure on Ukraine for no good reason, pausing our military aid and our intelligence sharing, because he didn't like the way President Zelensky spoke in the White House. He's put no pressure on Moscow. Oh, excuse me, not no pressure. They did take one economic step against the Russians about 2 weeks ago, which was a plus. But that's it. If President Trump really wants to push Putin to the table to negotiate seriously, he should announce he's willing to sell and send additional weapons to Ukraine. Because we're sending more sophisticated weapons to Ukraine, Putin's ability to advance on the land battlefield will go down sharply.
Really interesting points there, and we always appreciate your insight on this crucial topic. Ambassador John Herbst joining us from Fairfax, Virginia. Thanks for your time.
My pleasure. Thank you.